agricultural science class and welcome to LearnCity. In today's class, we're talking about factors of soil formation. We talked about the process of soil formation in our last class, but in today's class, talking about the factors of soil formations. We have 5 major factors of soil formations, and we have the climate, we have the parent materials, we have the topography, we have the biotic, which are the living organisms, and we also have time as some of the major factors of soil formation. Climate as one of the factors of soil formation. Under this climate, we have temperature, we have the rainfall, we have wind, and we have pressure. For temperature under climate, the alternating heating and cooling of rocks results in the continual expansion and contraction, which eventually results in cracks in the soil, in the rocks, and its consequent breakdown into small pieces to form the rock, to form the soil. Temperature affects the rate of chemical withering in the rock. The alternating heating and cooling of the rock, it results to a continual expansion and contraction, which eventually results in cracks in the rock and its consequent breakdown into small pieces to form the soil. Rainfall. The action of running water from rainfall causes the gradual wearing away of rocks during erosion to form soil. Rainfall provides water for hydrolysis. Also, raindrops may break down some parent rocks to form the soil. Rainfall enhances vegetative growth of plants whose roots causes further breakdowns of rocks, while the rainwater transports rock particles after disintegration. The action of running water from rainfall, it causes a gradual wearing away of rocks during erosion to form the soil, and this rainfall provides water for hydrolysis. This raindrops breaks down some parent rocks to form the soil, and this rainfall too, it enhances vegetative growth to some of our plants whose roots causes further breakdown on our rocks. We talked about our oil palm, our cashew, and our mango, our oranges, our cocoa, their roots of all these vegetative crops breaks down the rocks to form the soil. Wind. High wind velocity in deserts carry with it other tiny rocks which collide with one another to form rocks, resulting into the breaking of rocks into tiny pieces to form soil. Wind also removes weeded materials, thereby exposing a parent material to further breakdown. The high wind velocity in deserts. The high wind velocity in the desert, it carries some other tiny rocks, and when all these collide together, they form other rocks. And when they collide together, they result in the breaking of rocks into tiny pieces to form rock. When the wind carries rocks, some tiny pieces of rocks, and all the tiny pieces of rock, they collide together and they break into tiny pieces to form the soil. Pressure. High pressure on a hanging rock may cause such rocks to fall down and break into tiny pieces, resulting in this formation of soil. When you amount a lot of pressure on a hanging rock, it breaks into pieces, resulting in soil formation. Of soil. When you say, okay, I want to spoil this thing, I want to spoil this particular food, and you add pressure on that particular thing to crush it, that's how this rock is being like. When you add a high pressure on a rock to crush it, crushing of the rock would lead to formation of the soil. Another factor of soil formation is a parent material. Parent materials constitute the major materials from which soil is formed. They are igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks. Parent materials determine the chemical composition of the soil that is formed. It is also contains different minerals which amount for differences in the fertility of the soil formed from each of the different types. Parent material determines the physical characteristics of the soil. The hardness in a parent material affects the rate of the soil formation. The parent materials are just the major materials from which the soil is being formed, and these are igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic, and it might be the three rocks together. And the chemical composition of a rock of a soil is determined by these parent materials, and these parent materials contain different minerals which amount to the differences in the fertility of the soil. This particular lot of land where a soil is might be fertile, why this might not be fertile, and these are just parent materials that determines this. The parent materials determines the fertility of the soil. And the hardness of a parent material also affects the rate of the soil formation. Another factors of soil formation is the topography, the shape of the ground in relation to the underlying rock of the earth's surface is known as topography. Topography affects the rate of running off and erosion. It affects the rates of running off and erosion. Steep slopes encourage erosion and retard soil formation. Soil formation is faster in the valley than on slopes. Steepness of the slope affects the rate of abrasions in rocks, hence oil is formed. Steepness of the slope, it affects the rate of abrasions of the rocks, and that's how the soil is being formed under topography. Living organisms as another factors of soil formation. The activities of living organisms help to speed up the process of soil formation. Termites, earthworm, and rodents, they mix the minerals and organic materials together, and this results in the formation of soil. They also allow water and air into the soil, which eventually react with rock to cause their breakdown into soil. The activities of man during tillage and other farm operations like plowing, ridging, indirectly helps to break rocks into tiny pieces to form the soil. Another activities of living organisms is the activities of some microorganisms which promote the composition of organic materials, aids soil formation. Our termites, earthworms, and rodents, they mix some minerals and organic matter together, and this results to formation of the soil. And some activities of some microorganisms which promote the composition of organic materials, so they also aid in soil formation. The roots of plants penetrate rocks and break them into tiny pieces to form soil. Roots of some plants, like some of our permanent crops like our cashews, our mangoes, and our oil palm, their roots are always long and thick, and those roots, once they penetrate into the rocks, they break them into tiny pieces. They influence the organic matter content of the soil. Organisms produce carbon dioxide, which forms carbonic acid with water and enhances the weathering process. Organisms produces carbon dioxide, and which forms the carbonic acid with water, and this enhances the weathering rocks. Microbes also improve the soil aeration and water percolation. This enhances chemical and physical weathering also. The microbes helps in the decomposition of some organic matter in the soil. The decay of fallen leaves of trees with the aid of bacteria results in the formation of humus, and this is rich in plant foods. The decay of some leaves of some tree leaves, it's with the aid of bacteria, they result in the formation of humus, and this is very rich in plant foods. Time as another factor of soil formation. Time, it also plays an important role in soil formation. It takes a long time for mature soil to be formed. It takes a long time for a small piece of rock to disintegrate into grains of soil. It also takes a long time for plants to decay and become part of the soil. It also takes time for rainfall to leach chlorides, sulfates, and carbonates into the soil. It takes a short time in the formation of immature soil. Time also determines whether or not the soil is well developed. They'll say there's a time and season for everything, so there's also a time, and there's also a time for soil formation. It takes time before a small piece of rock would disintegrate into grains of soil. It takes long time for plants to decay and become part of the soil. It takes just a short time for formation of an immature soil, and it takes time to determine whether a soil is well developed. Thank you very much. We'll see you in our next class.